We're going to very quickly go over the Braun Outlook IV pump that we use from Nathan Latour Hospital. First thing we're going to do with the pump is turn it on by pressing the power button. You'll hear a series of beeps followed by a startup sequence, and then there'll be prompts on the main screen. Once the startup sequence is complete, we will select New Patient or Same Patient. Anytime we want to select features on the main screen, we use the cursor, arrows, and the Enter button. There are 3 options for drug infusion. There are 2 drug libraries that will have various drugs, heparin, nitroglycerin, propofol, etc. And then there's a basic infusion mode. In the basic infusion mode, all we do is set a rate and a volume to be delivered, and the pump goes. This is something that you'll use for maintenance fluids. If you're going to run a piggyback of an antibiotic, you'll also use this mode. So the first step, after you've chosen what mode you're going to use, is to load the pump set. Pump set has to be run through with fluid, and you have to get the air out. Best way to do that is to hold this set upside down so that the fluid comes in from the bottom, forces the air out the top. Once you've done that, you open the door by pulling the green lever. There's a magnet in the pump and on the cassette. You line those up. There's posts that go through the bottom of the cassette. The IV tubing goes through the guide on the left, goes through the air detector, and the anti-free flow clamp goes in the green spot, and then the tubing goes through the channel on the right. Close the door. Now the pump is ready to run. We have to select a rate and a volume. We've spiked 1 liter bag of saline, so we can put 1 liter into the volume to be delivered. If you're concerned about running your pump dry, or more appropriately, running your administration set until there's air in it, you can select less than what's in there, say 950. Select a rate to be a rate, mLs per hour to be delivered. That'll be whatever the doctor orders or whatever you feel is appropriate. We'll set it for 150 mLs. Anytime you make selections on these screens, you use the plus and minus keys beneath the decimal places. Once you've made a selection, you have to hit run to confirm it. Now the pump is running, 150 mLs an hour, volume to be delivered 950. The pump calculates what the amount of time is to deliver this volume, and it's 6 hours and 19 minutes. To titrate this drip, we will use the plus or minus keys beneath the decimal places. So we'll change from 150 to 250. Notice how the time will automatically be recalculated. Once we make a change here, we have to hit run to confirm it. Now our new time is 3 hours and 47 minutes. If I make a change, but I don't hit run to confirm, notice that the pump will alarm and revert back to the original rate. Now there's an alarm sounding, and we have to stop that. We can press hold to stop the alarm, which will stop the pump. We can restart it after that, or we can hit run to stop the alarm and keep the pump running. We will learn about the piggyback infusion a little bit later, but that's the basics of running a basic infusion. The only other thing to know is if you're on a long transport and you need to change bags, you're delivering 2 or 3 liters of fluid. As your volume to be delivered gets down to 0, you would hold the pump. Now the pump is not running. You would change your bag, and then you can reset your volume to be delivered to whatever your number that you want to use is. Always hit run after you've made a change, and now your pump is running again. Now, if we're delivering a drug that has to have dose calculations, we'll use a different menu choice. The two main options are dose guard or rate guard. This pump is set up so that many of the drugs are in dose guard. So we'll select dose guard. We'll select the relevant unit, typically the ED. We'll have everything you need. All of our common drugs, dopamine, epinephrine, heparin, nitroglycerin, propofol, levofed, are in here. We'll select propofol because it's a weight-based drug. So you move the cursor over to P and you select it with the enter button. Move the cursor down to propofol and select it. Now a warning comes up telling you to monitor blood pressure. If it was a drug like dopamine, it would probably say use caution for extravasation. Other drugs like nitroprusside would have a warning to protect the drug from sunlight. Simply hit enter to get through that warning. Now we have to set the parameters for the pump, starting with the concentration of the drug. There are two choices here. The standard, which is 1,000 milligrams and 100 mLs, or some other concentration. If we select concentration 2, the next screen will have us put in whatever the concentration is, 500 milligrams in 100 mLs. Notice that there, in the dose guard selection, notice that there are hard and soft maximums and minimums that you can administer. And I'll show you, there's a graph on the next screens that better depict what that does. So we'll use the standard concentration. First thing it needs us to do is enter the body weight. Notice that the numbers are lit up over here. So we use these buttons beneath the decimal places to enter our patient weight, 100 kilograms. Move the cursor down, select our dose, start at 10 mics per kilogram per minute. It calculates that that will deliver a rate of 6 mLs an hour. We accept that. Double check this stuff, because if you don't program the pump properly, it will not deliver the proper dose. Once we hit accept, notice that it loads over here. It tells us we're delivering Diprovan at a rate of 6 mLs an hour and that our volume to be delivered is 100 mLs. Now this graph depicts the limits that are programmed into the pump. There's a soft limit of 50 micrograms per kilogram per minute. We can deliver more than 50, but the pump will give us a warning and we'll have to confirm that that's what we want to do. There's a hard limit at the high end of 100 mics per kilogram per minute. We cannot deliver more than that. The pump will tell us that this can't be done. Select another medication. Notice that the pump calculates how much time is left on that 100 mLs at this rate. So 16 hours and 40 minutes if we don't change the rate. Once we're happy with that, we hit primary run, and now our drug is being delivered at the set dosage. If we want to titrate our dosage, which we frequently do with Diprovan, you can do that two ways. You can change the rate and watch how the micrograms will change as I change the rate. So we're up to 15 mics. Always hit run after you make a change on these screens. 15 micrograms per kilogram per minute is a rate of 9 mLs an hour. With 100 mLs to be delivered, that gives us 11 hours and 6 minutes. The other way to make a dose change is, notice that dose in the upper corner here is highlighted. We can select that, and then we can enter whatever our rate is. Let's go to 55. This will show you what the soft limit looks like. The value is outside the allowable dosage limits. Do you want to continue? Remember, if you don't confirm your changes, it aborts the change and reverts back when the alarm sounds. So let's do that again quickly. Outside the limits, yes. Confirming override, and now we're pumping. And notice our arrow has moved into the yellow. Now if I try to deliver this at over 100 mics, notice it will not allow me to do it. Dose exceeds hard limits, change dose, or select new drug. Okay, so we're going to stay at 155. Some important things to consider when you're using the pump, some handy features, are the fact that it keeps track of your volumes infused. So when you pick a patient up, you can know you can use the menu key, go to clear total infused, and you can see how much has been infused at the sending facility. If they had delivered a piggyback volume, like an antibiotic, it would be listed here. We've delivered 6 mLs of primary volume, no secondary, it's for a total of 6. Then we can clear that volume counter. Now notice that is all at 0. So you pick up the patient, you document how much has been infused, and then you clear it so that when you arrive at the receiving facility, you can look and see how much was infused during your transport. This is especially helpful with narcotics like fentanyl and Versed, where you need to document waste. The next thing we're going to talk about is a piggyback infusion. To stop any drip and to change modes, not likely that you'll need to do this, but you'll need to stop infusions. You press the hold button and it goes into hold. If you need to go into hold for more than 3 minutes, you just keep hitting the hold button. Now the pump will stay in hold for 12 minutes. Once the pump is on hold, you can exit the dose mode and it goes back to basic infusion. So let's set our basic infusion back up. 1 liter. We'll start that running. So let's presume that we're administering an antibiotic. We have D5W running at 150 mLs an hour for a liter, and we want to administer 50 mLs of an antibiotic at a different administration rate. They might want that over half an hour. So the way we're going to do that is select our piggyback channel. Now we have the option of entering in data. Remember that you have to stop the infusion to program a piggyback. So we press hold, we stop the infusion, we enter in, we're doing 50 mLs an hour, we're doing 50 mLs over half an hour. So that's 50 mLs to be delivered at 100 mLs an hour. Notice that gives us a 30-minute infusion. We hit the run button, and now that's running. It will run the secondary infusion at the rate for the volume to be delivered, and then it will automatically revert back to the primary infusion. So I'm going to change my volume so that we can see how that happens. Once this is complete, you'll notice that the pump reverts back. So now there's 0 minutes remaining on the secondary infusion. So this should end any second. And then the pump reverts back to the primary infusion, and your time left is updated. The last thing we need to talk about with this pump are the alarms. There are basically 2 kinds of alarms. One alarm occurs when there's a problem upstream from the pump. So we'll clamp the upstream clamp. This alarm will go off if you run out of fluid, or if you get air in the line, or if your clamp is still on, or you've run over the tubing with the wheel of the stretcher. Any number of reasons. Anytime an alarm goes off, you'll get the audible alarm, and then the main screen will give you options to troubleshoot with. Obviously, the faster your rate, the faster the pump will alarm. So to silence the alarm, you see it says check set. We hit hold. We troubleshoot, tells us to check our fluid, check our clamps, and then try to run it again. Now our pump is running. Second kind of alarm that we can get is a downstream occlusion. So anything from the pump to the patient, including the patient, can cause this type of alarm. If we forget to open our roller clamp, if we get an occlusion in the catheter, if the patient bends their elbow, these are all things that can cause this type of alarm. Now when you first hear the alarm, if it's, say, the patient bent their elbow, the alarm goes off and the patient straightens their elbow, the pump will begin running again. So we have an occlusion warning this time. If we eliminate the occlusion, the pump just keeps running. If the occlusion is not eliminated, this could be because the catheter has clogged, or the wheel of the stretcher is on the tubing again. If the occlusion doesn't almost immediately clear, the pump will stop. So downstream occlusion. And we didn't do this on the last error, but it operates the same way. So on this error, if we hit menu to silence the alarm, it says to silence the alarm, press menu for help or press hold. So if we press menu to silence the alarm, it gives us options to troubleshoot. Clamp closed or filter blocked. Okay, check those. Tube kinked. Check for that. IV positional or infiltrated. Check the patient. Make sure you have a right size catheter, and check the occlusion limit. In this case, it's the roller ball. So we'll open that and we'll press run, and now we're pumping again. So notice that the occlusion limit is set to 300 millimeters of mercury. There are cases with smaller catheters where you might have to increase that limit. The way to do that is to go into the menu, choose occlusion limit, and then you can change it on the screen here. But it won't allow you to change it until you've stopped the pump. So we can change it up to 500. Now our occlusion limit is 500. Probably best to leave these limits alone unless there was a very specific reason that, and you would know this when you left the hospital, if there was a specific reason that you needed to change this limit. So those are the alarms. Those are the basic modes. We covered basic infusion. We covered a calculated drug infusion from the library. And we covered running a piggyback. Remember that you must set the numbers correctly in the pump. Double check your entries because if you don't enter the numbers correctly, the pump won't deliver the right dosage. Also remember, when you're delivering a piggyback, such as an antibiotic, you need to use the secondary extension set to drop your main fluid down lower so that the secondary fluid is higher and runs first. Any questions about these pump operation, you can reach out to one of your supervisors and they'll be able to answer your questions.